Good afternoon, everyone. I am blessed to be here today with my friend, my mentor, Blaine Bartlett, blainebartlett.com with no /LMM because we're promoting the unstoppable celebration of champions. Uh, and this is an unstoppable show. I don't even know how many hundreds of episodes we've accumulated here, but it's always a blessing on Thursdays to be joined by you. How are you, Blaine?
I'm doing great, David. I'm doing really, really well. Life is percolating in a very nice way. We've got the foundation's celebration of champions coming up on May 4th. So excited about that. I saw the video that you cut last night. I'm blown away. Tom Cruise doesn't hold a candle.
Well, I know Tom Cruise doesn't because I've been compared to him for years, but it was the Michelangelo comparison so Craig Hinkley's here with me from White Hat Security, NTT Application Security, as you know him as CEO. But Craig, you'll have to indulge me for a second because they're honoring me for some stupid reason. They couldn't find it. They couldn't find anyone better, which is probably why I'm the chairman of the foundation. They probably couldn't find anyone better. But more importantly, so they come to me and they say, Dave, we want to honor you as a champion and all that you've done. So we want you to do this video, something like this. And they literally show me a Michelangelo video. And this is the bar that they set. Like, are you kidding me? And so I would have rather seen a Tom Cruise video. So anyway, I hope I did my best. That the main purpose or objective is to help support the Unstoppable Foundation. So hopefully it worked. I know I've given my entire
mission accomplished, my friend.
Database. Good. My fire Davis. But more importantly, we want to bring our friend on. There's an emerging opportunity within their application and security platform. Obviously, security just takes on a bigger role that's beyond business security anymore, because the security of our business is the security of our country, and it may even seem to be the security of the world because of the global nature of business and what's going on in the world. You've been doing this for quite a long time with a lot of experience, Craig. What has changed the most, when we went from basically, hey, let's protect our email to hey, let's protect the button that could be like our water, our grid. It's amazing how, you probably started as an IT guy going, all right, don't worry, no one's going to hack your email. It'll be fine, to, okay, global warfare is in our reach here. Let me figure out how to keep these vulnerabilities secure. So I'd love for you to talk about that evolution of the importance of your security platform and the evolution of the company as it applies.
Yeah, absolutely, David. Thank you. You're right. I started off as an IT guy pulling cables, through ducts and all that. And now, when was the last time you tried to pull a cable at your house? I mean, it's all wireless, but you're absolutely right. Application security has really come to the forefront, and it really stems from one basic transformation. That's the digitization of all our systems. You think, as you said, from the grid systems now to all of the things we do from an e-commerce perspective. I can't remember the last time I actually walked into a store to buy something without at least first looking for it online and potentially just buying it online and having it shipped to my house. So it's the whole digitization of every aspect of our lives that's fundamentally shifted the whole security posture, because now everything we do is online, everything we do is digital. And look at the last 2.5, 3 years because of the coronavirus, COVID. Every business, if they did not have a digital presence, a digital front door, as the physical front doors were shuttered, they were out of business. So everyone has accelerated to bring mobile applications, web applications, website, e-commerce sites online. Now, what that does is, for the hackers out there, they're saying, great, now there's so many more virtual front doors and virtual windows for us trying to break into. And I think that's the whole pivot from the risk perspective here, David, is now everyone is doing everything digitally and transacting digitally. So it just means that the hackers have got this absolute play field to go try and penetrate and breach everything from the grid to your bank account to your online commercial shopping and consumer shopping. So yeah, it's a daunting environment to be in.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this, Craig. I always have been. I started coding with Fortran with punch cards. I'm going to date myself with that, but the accelerated, what's the word I'd use here? Adoption, for lack of a better word, of digital, of tech. It's ubiquitous. And we think of the Internet of Things. Everything literally is connected. I mean, there's more connected devices on the planet today than there are people on the planet. Everything is connected. So when people talk about security, the layperson thinks about enterprise security, but everything is connected. My thermostat in my home is on the net. And if I'm not protecting that, all of a sudden, because I've got a server relay here in the house that's up 24/7, and it's kind of like, I'm wide open if I'm not paying attention to that. And if I'm wide open, all of a sudden it's snaking back into some very interesting other areas that I have absolutely no cognizant representation in my mind about how did I get connected to that. And all of a sudden, away we go. How does White Hat address that? How does NTT addressing that?
Yeah, so great question. And what we're doing as we look at this landscape is that our job is to really help secure those applications that are running our clients' digital business. So if you think about all of that software that's running on that website, that web application, that mobile device, but any application you've built, what we do at NTT Application Security, formerly White Hat Security, is that we run our solution and we try and effectively hack that software first, to hack that website first, to find those security holes that the hacker would find and exploit. So in essence, when we first started back in 2001, our slogan at the time was hack yourself first. And that's really, in essence, what we're trying to do is we're through our platform and our team and our technology is, can we find the holes that are in the applications that you built? Now, the other part that we're focused on, as well as other providers in the industry, is as you're building, as you're writing that, you said you wrote Fortran and the punch cards and all that, but now as developers are developing software and new applications, I think it was Netflix does like 10,000 releases of software a day to their platform. And what we're doing is embedding that security check within the software development process as well. So as you're developing the software, also beside there looking for those security holes and those defects, so we can actually try and plug them even before they get out, into the internet, where they're exposed to the hackers.
And just to move from White Hat Security to NTT Application Security, what was the purpose of the name change? Were there an additional merger, or was it just the branding of application security that wasn't there from the well-known brand of White Hat Security?
Yeah, so great question, David. White Hat Security was acquired by NTT Security back in 2019. So NTT Security is a leader in managed security services, security consulting and advisory services. So they acquired White Hat to add application security to their comprehensive security portfolio. So we just recently changed the name as part of, amalgamating ourselves with the brand that is NTT, which is a global Fortune 63 company. So that's the reason for the name change.
Interesting. And this may seem like a left field question here, but behind you, you have some artwork. And if I'm not mistaken, that's a segment off of a Japanese woodblock print. Would that be accurate?
That is correct. That is correct. And my wife will be upset. It's the Great Wave over
I know which one you're talking about.
Yes. And I will pay for that later, I assure you. My wife's an interior decorator and designer, so I'm going to pay for that one. I can tell you that, Blaine. But yeah, it's the Great Wave over Kanazawa, yes.
I spent a lot of years in Japan, and NTT was Nippon Telephone and Telegraph. Is this the same NTT?
That is correct. It's the same NTT from Japan that you know and love and trust.
Yeah,
there you go. Okay.
Blaine, I wasn't going to touch it. I don't know if you remember it. It may have been with Mike Diamond on my Wednesday as office hours, but I don't touch the paintings behind people anymore. I made a comment once about a painting behind someone about I forget what I said it was, and the person is like, no, that's a portrait of my wife. And so when you start, I know you forgot the name of the wave or the name of the picture, but I've done well and way worse. And so I rarely comment on the paintings other than I really like it. To just corner as we finish up, I always find it interesting as well. I come from a technology background after law school, mostly in Web 1, and then moving, of course, to Samsung and Web 2, and now kind of studying Web 3 and the applicable capabilities of Web 3 and how it affects the businesses that I'm in. But I always find it individual. We started with the Unstoppable Foundation, and you have quite a diverse interest. For someone who's been in technology for over 20 years, in security specifically as well, you volunteer and are an advisor as an executive in residence in the health and wellness startup called Mevolution. And this is something that's focused in on helping individuals identify, what they're doing to block their own truth or their higher frequency. How does someone that comes from your background, get it to be an advisor and executive residence in kind of a more woo-woo, health and wellness space of Mevolution?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's for folks interested, it's jointhemevolution.com. And look, David, the reality is that about 4 years ago, I faced a personal situation, a personal tragedy. I don't have permission from the people involved in that to share it, but suffice to say, it left me as a person looking at and staring down the abyss. And I had a choice 4 years ago to either be pulled into the abyss or to use it to step back and step up, and as a motivation for change. So I've spent the last 4 years kind of on a journey of trying to create a better version of myself. And as a result of that, I ran into and met the two founders of Mevolution. And the program they're offering, it really helps folks identify those things that give them energy and those things that are blocking them from showing up as the best versions of themselves. And I took their survey, started working their system, and saw some amazing transformations in how I started showing up and acting and performing differently. So I told them I had to be part of it. So I am. And today I continue that journey and really I'm one of those people that if I'm not trying to make and improve, how I show up and how I am a better husband, a better father, a better colleague, a better leader, then, today I have to do that. That's just one of my core drivers in life, is to create a better version of myself every day by doing the work I need to do on myself.
You're speaking Blaine in my language. I mean, my biggest paradigm shift of my life was, I used to try to get more wealth, more health, more happiness, and more worthiness in my life. And once I determined I am happy, healthy, wealthy, and worthy, what am I doing to interfere with it? And that's why I saw that language of energize or block our potential or our progress. I can see Blaine shaking his head because he's been in multiple conversations, mentored me in being my best self. And people would say to me all the time, I love when Blaine always says, I'm dating myself. I'm like, dude, you got gray hair and a gray beard. You don't have to say that you watch Laverne and Shirley to date yourself. People know we're old. Let's just be honest. But nobody, can believe how much energy we have. And I always say, I don't have the energy. I'm just clearing what's blocking. Exactly what I'm through. And I love that perspective behind you, and appreciate you talking about that, because I think Mevolution is something that I'm going to check out, but encourage other people as well to join the Mevolution, as you said. Obviously, I don't think NTT needs any of our promotion, but if you want to go to their website, go to whitehatsecurity.com. But more importantly, Craig Hinkley, a significant figure and leader in a very substantial business, but more importantly as well, really giving back to what Blaine and I believe in, pursuing our potential. So Craig, thank you so much. And thank you for all of your support and everything that you do in joining us. We appreciate you.
Hey, David, Blaine, thank you. I have tremendous gratitude for being on the show today. Thank you.
Very
lovely
cool.
having you here.
What a great guest. I love that. It's so cool when you get someone that the bigger purpose is way different than what they have, what I call an occupation, what occupies them during the day, an activity they get paid for. Which leads us right into our next guest, who once again is completely aligned with us, Blaine. She's the founder of Flexcel Network, Sophie Wade, SophieWade.com, and she has a new book out. One of my 4 basic principles and values. Go ahead, you can hold it up there. Empathy works. If you want peace in your life, you need to be empathetic, and empathy does work. It is a key competitive advantage in the new era of a word I don't even like to say, but work. I call it activity I get paid for. And we'll be looking for this. You can pre-order it now. It'll come out May 3rd. And then you should pre-order the book, get the book, and then come to the Unstoppable Celebration of Champions on May 4th. So we got your big plan for you here.
Great. I love it.
But, obviously empathy is a very used trend right now, a word, whether it's Gary Vee, myself, or Blaine Bartlett, or many other thought leaders will talk about the importance of empathy. But what I love is putting into the context or reconciling it into the pragmatic world of our occupation, or this new era of activity you get paid for, or work. But I haven't heard or seen, and I can't wait to read about it, how in that reconciliation of activity we get paid for, occupation or work, we actually can have a competitive advantage. Obviously, an abundance mindset could be seen as a competitive advantage, but I would love to hear your perspective, because I'm certainly in agreement with how empathy not only works, but how it's actually advantageous to utilize in the work setting.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm delighted to be sharing my thoughts about that, because I think this new era of work, the future of work, arrived in 2020. And with that technology-driven era that we sort of arrived in a rush, but with all that technology sort of cascade of events that happened, it really is changing how we're working, and in the sense that it's much more unpredictable. It's happening much faster. We're having to work in different ways. The nature of work has changed, with much more teamwork, much more collaborative work, many more projects. And because of that, we need to work that much more closely together. And when we're working closely together, we need to understand each other. So that's what it's really driving. So empathy in this book is really, it's talking about the future of work, but it's really about sort of human understanding. And so it's the human-centric counterbalance really to the technology side of the future of work. And so the more that we can understand each other as leaders, understanding our team members, as team members, in sales, understanding the customer, in all of these different areas, the more that we can understand the person that we're dealing with and tap into what they're going through and sell to them, more attentively, be able to work out just when to convert them, or just be able to rally people, understand when they're doing well, when they're doing badly, and how you can manage someone better. So all of those different elements, that's where I look at empathy as being a key to performing better and helping everybody else do the same.
The idea of empathy, I love it in a business setting. I mean, it's very consistent with when David and I wrote Compassionate Capitalism. I can't experience or behave compassionately unless I recognize that I am connected to whatever I'm feeling or behaving compassionately towards. And empathy would be, for me, the emotional analog to the behavior of compassion. Would that be a fair assessment?
In my experience, empathy and compassion are so clear, so interrelated, and there doesn't seem to be much agreement as well. There are many different definitions as to where compassion is and where empathy is. So I'm not even going to go there if you accept that. Okay. I think it's just easier to say that the more we focus on both compassion and empathy, the better we'll all be. Is that fair?
That'll work.
Does that sound fair? Well, I'm going to take it a different direction.
Okay.
Where I see incorporating empathy is so important. The critical business issues that face us today with this new hybrid approach, a new enlightenment of productivity, engagement, accessibility, and gratitude for the occupations that we have and the availability and opportunities that we have, both at the employee level, management and leadership levels, executive levels. We have a problem with recruitment, retention, and burnout. and I think all three are directly related to incorporating empathy. How, by incorporating empathy, does it help with recruitment, retention, and of course, burnout?
So this is the burnout question was, in fact, all of these questions. I was just in Northwest Indiana speaking this morning to an event about the Center of Workforce Innovations, because they're dealing with these very serious issues about not being able to hire people, not being enough people around, not being able to retain them, and dealing with burnout. So one thing in terms of empathy and burnout, for me, the prime reason for burnout is we have too many meetings. Like, people aren't organizing their work, and they're just having meeting after meeting and not saying, well, hang on a second, does David need to be there? I don't want to exclude him, but on the other hand, so I might just have him there. And then you end up in hundreds and hundreds of meetings that you don't need to be in. So I was talking with a gentleman about how he was organizing meetings, and at their company, they video record every single meeting. And they also take notes. And so that video is actually keyword searchable. So it means that I don't have to attend the meeting, because I know that I can actually search through it afterwards, check through it, see what was said, so that I can follow up. And if I was only needed for a portion of it. So I think being empathetic is really treating your time as valuable, and sort of saying, well, do they both need to be at the meeting? Maybe one of them does, and really being thoughtful about what meetings are and being effective with that, because that's really valuing your time and the time that you need to do work on other things. When it comes to retention and engagement, understanding who people are and how they can do their best work and what people's skills are. I mean, I'm always asking people, like, what do you think your three top skills are? And 5% of an audience ever says that they know. So if we don't know what our skills are, how can we sort of best orient our team members in terms of what they're doing, and orient them to be doing stuff that they like doing and they enjoy doing, and really bringing the best out in people. So the more that we understand someone, and the more that we can understand when they're tense about something, or helping them, build trust-based relationships, where really empathy is at the core of that, then they can feel safe, then they can open up, then they can share their ideas as well as their concerns before something bad happens, because they didn't feel safe to say something. They didn't really understand how to do that particular part of the project. So I think empathy ties into every single aspect of how we're doing our work, and how we're sort of drawing people in and creating the kind of environment that's going to enable them to be successful and contribute all the ideas that we need right now.
So good.
I like the way that you approach that, Sophie, because in part, I've got a lot of experience working with physicians, doctors, on the issue of burnout. I'm on the teaching faculty at the American Association for Physician Leadership, and this is a big issue, particularly in the last 2 years. And one of the things that we've kind of awakened to, I guess, is the meetings are one thing, but there's embedded in all of these meetings is a lack of meaning. Why am I here?
Yes.
And it's that lack of meaning, because to the point that you're making about I'm investing time, or I'm spending time, more precise, I'm spending time, not getting a return on that investment while I'm sitting here in this meeting. So from an empathetic perspective, I'm just kind of thinking about this from a leadership perspective. If I'm a leader and I'm empathetically attuned to what my staff is going through, or addressing, or exposed to, I'm going to start recognizing that meaning does not seem to be present in a lot of the activities that they're engaging in. And as a consequence, burnout is the symptom I'm seeing. And all of a sudden now I've got retention issues.
Exactly. And I think, and if I feel that I'm not connected with what's going on, and I have to sit here, there's that resentment, which also sort of impacts as well, because you're suddenly kind of like, I don't have to be here. And a friend of mine actually who works for Atlassian, he had a thing about meetings. We were chatting, or sort of venting with each other about it. And he said he asked every single person in his meetings for like the next 2 weeks or something, like, why am I going to be there? What's my purpose? What do you want out of me? And he said, 80% of his meetings suddenly evaporated. And, sometimes you'll misalign with what you think, what your purpose you think your purpose is. You might be going there to brainstorm and they actually want you to make decisions, or, what is the role that you're coming with? And do you have to be there for the whole meeting? So I think one of the things that empathy, I think, elevates is how we're doing our work and helping people be as effective as possible with the new tools that they're using, with how we're organizing, because when we're using with hybrid work, we really need to think about the workflow and how that's managed, and if everybody's at the office, you don't have to be so purposeful, so intentional about how everything gets done. Because, you're just sort of there, you can call up the cubicles, hey, did I do that? But now we're working at such a pace, it's much less predictable, it's much less linear, that we really need to think more purposefully about it. And that for me is empathetic, because we're trying to work it out, trying to clarify what you need to do, and then let you get on with it.
I love the way that you align empathy with intention. And I can see that in your own career. You had an extraordinary textbook at first for executive MBA program. Then you have now moved to paperbacks and audio and ebooks to communicate your wonderful ideas and share them with people. But you've also transcended into a world that I transcended into effectively communicates, the podcast world. And you talk about transforming work with Sophie Wade, while meanwhile you've truly transformed the modality in which you communicate and teach and mentor and coach people. In that context, how effective is podcasting to communicate effectively the messages and the lessons that you have to teach, comparatively to originally a textbook? You'll have your paper book, your audio, and your ebooks as well. But I have found that this format of a podcast, and I've done thousands, has a different, or has allowed me to have a different perspective. For you, what was that perspective that you now have by podcasting?
That's a really interesting question. I started podcasting because I'd done a lot of writing, and I just realized that so many people were listening, and I need to meet people where they are. I mean, I truly believe that. And so I do still do some writing. I haven't done my blog in a little bit while, but I try and get that done as well. But I
just transcribe your podcast. It becomes a blog. Let me teach you, Sophie. Come on. There's multiple amplifications possible with correct modifications.
It is true, but I haven't quite with the book. I've been under a rock writing this book. So when I get out and I can sort of get my content into chunks and be really organized about it, I can set up a process. I'm not a process person. I'm more of an ideas and put it out there. So what I do love about the podcast is I get to talk to lots of interesting people and just, get into their brains and sort of find out how they got here. I mean, for so many people, it's the journey as to how they got there that is so interesting to me. I was just I don't know if you know Minter Dial. I was just interviewing him and about you lead, and about how, of course, empathy, with, I don't know about compassion, but certainly with empathy, you have to have enough understanding about yourself before you can understand others. And that's what we were talking about. And he's all about the Grateful Dead. I mean, he was a Deadhead. And so he was talking about leadership with regard to the Grateful Dead. And I'm like, I was not expecting that. So, there was people coming with so many different ideas. And so that really expands my brain. And if I can bring that always with some of transformation. So really it's about meeting people where they are, and, so people can listen wherever they are, wherever they can be. It's kind of that whole flexible work thing, right?
Yeah, the Flexcel network. It's so funny because there's that big debate between journey and destiny. And I always say, don't forget who you're walking with. And that's what I like about the podcasting. And I get to walk with people like you, Sophie Wade, and get to read your new book coming out May 3rd, the day before the Unstoppable celebration.
Yes, well, now I know about that too.
Empathy works. And I get to walk with my friend Blaine Bartlett every Thursday. Thank you for joining us. We will look forward to pre-ordering your book, and I can't wait to listen to it. I'm an audiobook person, and I love your podcast as well for the very reason you shared. Thanks for joining us here on Office Hours.
Thank you so much for having me. Great pleasure.
Thank you, Fran.
You're great. All right. Sophie Wade is extraordinary. Now on to our next amazing woman. And you're just going to love Fran Berry. I've been blessed to speak with her, and just blown away. She's the director of investor compliance for the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation, obviously helping so many people. But she has been honored as well. And I was so excited to have her on here. She is the nominee for the Woman of the Year for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And what a great honor for a great effort. And just delighted to have you here, Fran. And just wanted to kind of get people more motivated, because you're a very motivating person.
Absolutely.
What I hear a lot, because I try to keep a charitable purpose or cause in everything I do. And Blaine and I are on the board of Unstoppable, and we're having our own celebration. And I don't know, like I said, they're honoring me as a champion. But more importantly, I want to use the recognition to inspire and motivate others to give and ask. And for you, how has giving and asking, which I believe are one, how have they changed in your perspective through the efforts that you've given, all the charitable time, money, and value you've given? How has your perspective of giving and asking changed through this experience?
It has been such an eye-opening experience. To be on the other end of things, just being nominated has been an amazing experience. And first, let me backpedal and say thank you for having me on, both Blaine and David. Just the experience right here is phenomenal. But just being able to be put out in the world, be put out within the organization of Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, when I have not personally been touched by leukemia and lymphoma, but Leukemia and Lymphoma Society helps all cancers. So with that, I am just full of gratitude. And it's with my gratitude that I see both sides. And where I have been on the donation side of things, and now I am on the asking side of things. So it is so eye-opening, and where some people may become frustrated, I see them as roadblocks that I need to jump over or barrel through. And there's no easy way around these things, but we can get through them. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Amazing.
Yeah, the Lymphoma and Leukemia Foundation. My late wife died of multiple myeloma. Blood cancer,
Yes.
and so I'm really resonating with both sides. And I mentioned this not from a fundraising perspective necessarily, as much as a palliative care treatment perspective.
Right.
And the impact that fundraising had on the research that was being done in this field. And since she died 11 years ago. And just watching what's happened, and I've done a fair amount of work with the Myeloma Foundation itself, just facilitating some of their work internally as an organizational development process. But just watching the impact of fundraising on the ability for these organizations to make a difference. It is immensely important that this work gets done. So I want to just acknowledge what you're doing with this, Fran. It's just extraordinary.
Thank you so much. And it honestly, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society has 3 pillars, and you've touched on a few of them. So it's research and treatment, it's advocacy for the patients, and it's care and support for the patients. And that's where our fundraising money goes towards.
And you talk about your win, and right now you're supporting your own mom who's receiving treatment for cancer as well.
Yes.
And you're aiming high by manifesting this big win, but the win has a purpose behind it, a purpose and thoughts about purpose that far go beyond the recognition. And for you, I think it's even more personal to have this recognition, but there's a bigger picture behind it. For you, what does it mean to win and have this recognition, to be just nominated? But what about winning as you're campaigning for Woman of the Year? Something that will always stand with you. What does winning something like this mean?
Winning Woman of the Year would mean continuing my work with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Um, it would mean continuing my work with the society, but also teaming up with drug companies. It would mean teaming up within local organizations within Philadelphia and hopefully beyond. I see myself having a bigger purpose. Like I said, I am a one of the Legionnaires for First Form, and that's where I first heard you, David, listening to Andy's podcast. So um, I love how the health connection works there as well. So, with I use that as I'm also a personal trainer. So I use my personal training with my clients to make sure that they're their healthiest and making sure that their future is right now instead of being reactive. We're being proactive in their future.
Yeah. The work that you do, there's mitigation of the disease itself, but there's also the other side of that, which is the advocacy for health. And that's a piece that gets missed a lot. When people are in a position of fundraising for a cancer movement as an example, because the focus goes to illness, it goes to as opposed to there's another side of this that we're actually supporting as strongly as we are the other side. So can you talk a little bit about some of the things that the foundation is doing in terms of health advocacy, not just mediation of the disease itself?
Sure. Well, people don't realize that Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, like I had said previously, that it does stem into all cancers. So the research that's being done with blood cancer alone goes into breast cancer, into bone cancer, into brain cancer. So, the research that is done with blood cancer does stem into all cancers. But in terms of advocacy, I mean, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, one of the things that's really nice for the younger kids is scholarships. So that's another piece that people don't realize is that the little bodies that are affected by leukemia and lymphoma, they are given scholarships for education, and that's a wonderful piece that people don't realize that these funds go towards after all of the hardships that their families have succumbed to, putting out money and for treatments over time. These numbers add up, and that's one of the benefits of being involved with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
And it's so interesting because your background beyond your charitable efforts uh, is indicative of where we're at today. I'm looking at you hold 2 master degrees in social work and compliance, and I'm thinking about my mom's generation, where if someone, my grandma actually taught social work at Ohio State and had a PhD, I believe, in social work, and spent her whole life working at the Jewish Community Center as a social worker.
Yep.
And you have applied the lessons that you've learned to real estate, to being a personal trainer, to helping cure with research and treatment, advocating, which I'm sure falls into a lot of the things that you learned, the advocacy part, and support, obviously, is inherent within social work and compliance. But yet we live in a world where we're not limited by our skills that we're trained on, that we can apply them to real estate. We can apply them as a certified personal trainer and still, be the Woman of the Year for leukemia and lymphoma, which I just am so encouraged when I see people that it's just not what I see early days of sports where, there was in my law school, there was barely a sports law certificate. They were just applying, labor law to athletics. Today, I love the backgrounds. You can't connect the dots backwards because you'd be so confused how,
Right.
this person ended up where they are. What do you think it is, to in a mindset side of it, that you're constantly improving yourself, you're constantly pursuing your potential, but you're not limiting yourself to, this is what I'm trained in. I'm just a plumber, I'm just a doctor, I'm just a social worker. But there seems to be a mindset for people like you that is so expansive that you can do real estate training, social work, compliance, and save the world of cancer. What in your mindset do you think has given you that perspective that I want to share with more people, because it only contributes to an abundant world where we're all applying the best of ourselves to be the best selves?
I follow my heart and I listen to my mind. Um, Going back to the podcast that I first heard you on, I've started to thank God every night before I go to bed and every morning when I get up. I thank God for what I have, what I will have, what went wrong, and the lessons that I learned from the day, even for the bad things. And I make sure I say even for the bad things, because in each bad thing there was a lesson. And for everything that I may have thought was bad, someone else has something worse going on in their life. So I follow my heart and I listen to my mind. Um, I've been blessed with a great family, a supportive family, and husband. And no matter what cockamamie idea I've come up with next in terms of what degree I want, or what I want to accomplish next, he's always been supportive of that. And he's in law enforcement. So he's got his steady career, right? So I've been the one to jump from thing to thing, but each of my things have all been connected, just like you said, David. And oddly enough, they're connected to goodness,
I
right?
love
So,
There you go.
You're looking,
so
you're looking, you're looking at a guy that came off the beach one day after recovering from losing over $100 million, and telling his wife, "Oh no, I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to empower over 1 billion people to be happy."
that's right.
And she didn't have a job, so it's I get it. I just wanted you to share your perspective. We are so proud of you. It's
Yeah.
incredible. We are all supporting and campaigning for you to win the Woman of the Year of Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. You already have one in our hearts and our minds and our soul for everything that you do. Continue on your journey. We are happy to spend it and share it with you. Congratulations, Fran Barry. Where can people support you? How can they support you in the efforts to actually win this great honor?
So I have a website for my direct donations. I can receive sponsorships. I can receive ads if people have businesses and they want to place an ad in the gala's brochure. We are accepting just cash donations. We will accept anything at this point. So donations, ads, sponsorships, everything is wonderful, and everything goes directly to, like we said, the advocacy, the support, the treatment, and the research.
Beautiful.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you,
Please
Fran.
support Fran. We appreciate you. Come back. Congratulations.
Always. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me.
Thank
We'll
you.
have you back when you are Woman of the Year.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Whether you
Absolutely.
are
Thank you so much.
awesome. It's done. It's done. It's done, as I always say. All right. Last but not least, the president and CEO of RESAAS, RESAAS.com, RESAAS. Hopefully they pronounced that right. Did I pronounce that right?
You nailed it. Hi, David. Hi, Blaine.
Hey, it's
You're
Tom
done.
Rossiter. I know I got that one hopefully right as well, but you have an extraordinary platform, Tom, and it's so nice to have you on here because there's so many things. I read a book by David McCourt and Frank McCourt's brother, and it's called Rethink. And, every single, historical, traditional institution of ours, and for you, real estate and realtors is, one of those: automobiles, education, finance, healthcare. I can go down the list. We need to rethink it. But beyond rethink it, we have to create platforms that support the way that we now interact and the technologies that we have and the culture that we have to effectuate more value in what happens with these major institutions like real estate. You yourself have extraordinary experience, but you really rethought, I think, how real estate works and how realtors work. What were some of the key components that you saw that needed to be rethought or re-engineered within the context of realtors?
Yeah. Hey, David. Hey, Blaine. Thanks for having me on. It's really interesting. The real estate industry, much like other sales-based industries, it's very social. And we all know agents and realtors and brokers on the real estate side, and how social they are. That's a large part of how they roll. And so we've enjoyed pretty amazing success because we've just built a place for them to be as social as they are in real life, but just with technology. And we made it really easy. And so it's become really popular. And as you say, it's about value. It's all about value. That's a big part of what you stand for, David. It's a big part of what I think is critical in anything that goes well. And when it comes to real estate, the role of the agent as we know it is changing. It's not just about negotiating the price and getting the deal done. They need to deliver value across the board. And so we built a place that let them do that, let them learn how to do it and excel. And it's pretty well.
It's, my daughter-in-law has a real estate agency, and it's been a learning curve for her. I mean, to the point that you're addressing right now, it has changed. The industry has changed fundamentally from where, you had the MLS book, and and it was kind of a closed community, gated community sort of a thing. What has been if you could identify a single fulcrum point that has transformed the way that you at RESAAS are doing work that is different than what was done before? What would be that one little fulcrum?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's two fulcrums in the last 15 years. I think one was the internet becoming popular, right? So you mentioned the old MLS book. I think for those that don't know, the way that real estate used to go down is real estate agents and brokers would meet in a caravan once a week, and they'd flick through a book, right? Kind of like the yellow pages, like the telephone directory. And that was how they knew what was on the market. That was how they tracked inventory. And the internet changed that. We saw portals come along, and we could all sit at home in our pajamas with a glass of wine and browse what was for sale. So internet was one. And then recently, Blaine, it's been COVID. It's been the pandemic. It's created a mindset shift in all industries, but we've seen it within real estate, where now it's a lot more important to stay connected virtually using technology. And like I said at the top of the show, we're dealing with a very social group of professionals that rely so much on face-to-face contact and interaction. And when that's taken away, they need to find ways to adapt. And as a digital platform for the real estate industry, which is what we are, we managed to thrive at the beginning of the pandemic as agents flocked to using a platform to stay connected. And that growth has continued. So two big fulcrums we've seen in the last kind of decade and a half.
And one of the more impressive things too, Tom, with RESAAS, and I really want to delve deep into this because I've dealt with a lot of SaaS solutions in my career. I worked for one of the original 1992 Westlaw, and we, sold that for $3.4 billion in 1995. So it was a successful SaaS model. But even in the context of that, there was still this one area that so many people can't convert. And that's from a free to use business, a social network, a community, and that, poignant moment of trying to create reoccurring revenue from your community that's been a free to use community. And that's what you've built it on is, the greater good. And to do well by doing good sometimes becomes a bigger inhibitor when you're re-engineering your community into a reoccurring revenue generating technology instead of just a free social network. For you, how were you so successful in converting from the free to use model or the freemium model to this pay to play model?
It's all about value. right? We talked about it earlier. It's all over. I've been, in my homework reading up on today, everything I see online about you, David, has the word value splashed all over it. And it's so true. So building communities is really hard. Making them really sticky and successful and thriving and rich is even harder. And you don't do that by putting your hand out day one to say, hey, come on in, but you got to pay, right? So imagine having to pay when you first joined LinkedIn or Facebook and no one else was there. You just wouldn't, right? So there's an art to it, and it's really tricky. But if you persevere and you focus on the user, you focus on the customer, and you focus on delivering value that makes them want to come back, and then you reach a point where they have to come back because there's so much great value, and in our case, so much unique real estate data, that it becomes almost this fear of missing out, right? That FOMO factor that they talk about. And that's where you're not kind of dangling something to say, well, if you want it, you got to pay. It's like you're actually delivering tremendous value. And in the case of real estate, which remember, real estate agents are 100% commission-driven salespeople, right? They don't earn a monthly income until they do a deal. And so they're very motivated, and you have to be very clear with what you ask of them and what you show them. And we've been fortunate. We've put the world's biggest platform for real estate agents together. We've got over 500,000 agents that use it now globally. And there are no consumers or clients. So they talk about all the good stuff. And they talk a lot about referring business to each other. And as we all know, in any sales profession, so much of it comes from referrals. We focused on that. And I think that's been one of the key reasons why we've been so successful in growing our business. And now we're monetizing it through more and more adoption.
And before I let Blaine ask the last question, I just got to rephrase that, because I do study value, and I study businesses like yours that are successful. And this little formula, and I think it applies to what you have done. It's you focused in on delivering value, and then through your platform, delivering it well, and then you can charge the many. And I think if you follow that formula like you have at RESAAS, it becomes just a win-win or an abundant situation where, when you can provide more value than you're asking for, everybody wins. And you have to be able to provide the value, deliver it well, then you can charge the many. Go ahead, Blaine. Why don't you ask the last question?
Yeah, it was just the idea of use value. I mean, people will pay. You've got members, they pay, but they get greater utility, greater use value than the dollar amount that's involved there. And for me, I mean, I talk a lot about in the work that I do with with the leaders that I actually end up coaching. How are you putting yourself in the position, and how are you putting your organization in the position of being seen as a center of distribution, not as a center of accumulation? And it strikes me in the way that you're describing RESAAS that it is ultimately a center of distribution, and that's where the value proposition comes in. Now, do you need to make money? Absolutely, but that's not the focal point. It's about giving. It is literally about giving, knowing that it's going to come back in some way, shape, or form. Is that a fair assessment of how you would personally experience what you're doing? You see yourself as a center of distribution?
You're very astute, Blaine. That's exactly what it is. And
that's why I get the big bucks.
Yeah, exactly. We just focused on making something that is very open. The real estate industry is, you mentioned the MLS book earlier. For decades and decades and decades, people have thought it's been competitive, but actually it's extremely collaborative. And we recognize that. People said we were crazy to try and build a technology platform that allowed for agents to share data and share opportunities, but that's in their DNA. And it's taken a little bit of time and a lot of learning, but now we're enjoying the success of that within real estate. And to your point earlier, I think we've cracked the code, and now we're excited in the months and quarters ahead in our business to keep focused on real estate, but replicate that same offering, that same industry platform, that same arena to deliver value to professionals into other industries that are inefficient and need to be brought together through a centralized platform. And as a public company, that's what RESAAS has created, and we're excited to keep banging that drum.
And you have to keep banging it, because it does take time to build a community. And even building my own brand over the last 5 years, people thought I was crazy when I said, look, I just need 2 ambassadors the first year that will get me 2 more ambassadors. And in 20 years, I'll have 2 million people getting me 2 million people. And that's truly what it takes to build a community, because you have to learn how in what people want. You have to learn what they're listening for. You can't just assume what they're listening to. Tom Rossiter, thank you so much. You are absolutely a true entrepreneur, a leader, and thank you so much for building a community so we all benefit as customers as well when you have a collaborative distribution point, a platform like yours. President and CEO of RESAAS, Tom Rossiter, thank you so much. RESAAS.com. If you're a real estate broker agent, make sure you're joining that community. We appreciate you.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Blaine.
Take care.
Thanks,
Keep delivering value. Awesome. Well, there we go, Blaine. It's all up to you now. What's your takeaway of the day?
My takeaway today has to do with how I define awareness, and I'm going to go all the way back up to Craig and just right at the end of the conversation we had with him. The way I define awareness is it's a noticing of where my access to spirit is either opened or closed. That's what awareness is about. If I can become aware of that constricture, that potential for constriction or expansion, everything else flows. And all four of our guests actually spoke about that. Through empathy. Where's it opened or closed? We've got certainly with cancer fundraising, there's a giving and a receiving piece on that. Where's it open? Where does it close? And it has to flow. And then finally, with Tom, center of distribution. So my takeaway here is all four of our guests today really spoke about, and they wouldn't have used this word, I don't think, but awareness. Awareness is a leader's superpower. It truly is when they're using it in the way that I define it.
And selfishly, my takeaway is about driving traffic to the unstoppable celebration of champions. I think the lesson from all four of these people is to give value, you need to receive as well. And to give opportunities to people to give is even more important than giving yourself. And there's always a give and a take, an open and a close, receiving and a give and an ask. And I think it's really important. I will fit a round peg in a square hole on this one, because I want everyone out there to support not only our friend Fran Barry and all these companies and their solutions and platforms, but I am asking, because I'm giving today. I'm giving an ask to allow you to make an investment in yourself by empowering other people, by helping other people. And there's no better way than joining us as chairman and as a board member with Blaine and our beloved founder, Cynthia Kersey. I'm truly giving you an opportunity to experience life, the purpose of life, in love and forgiveness, to support the unstoppablecelebration.org. Join me in a VIP room. I'll be sharing as much wisdom and value as I can. So will some other world thought leaders, but more importantly, even Sarah McLaughlin will be entertaining us. Yeah. So if that's not enough, I don't know what is, but I am giving you an opportunity to give. Unstoppablecelebration.org. Thank you, Blaine. I love you. We'll keep pushing for May 4th. Everybody join us. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, everyone. Come join me on TikTok at 4:15. I'll be there as well. As always, be more interested than interesting. Reach out to me if you need any help in giving. David@dmeltzer.com. I'm here to provide value and service to all, because I believe to be kind to your future self is to do good deeds. Please do a good deed and support us at the Unstoppable Foundation. David@dmeltzer.com. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, team. Thank you, Blaine. We'll see you tomorrow.